I'm Gabriella, 32 years old, and a decade ago, my sister Claire left her 3-month-old daughter on my doorstep in Willow Creek, Oregon, and vanished. My parents, cold and detached, told me, "She's your burden now." I raised my niece Sophie as my own, building a beautiful life together. Then Claire returned with my parents, suing for custody, claiming I'd kept them apart. Today, in this courtroom, I handed the judge a sealed folder. His eyes widened as he asked, "Do they even know what you have?" I just nodded. Get comfortable, because this story of how I fought for the daughter of my heart will show you what true family really means. Before Sophie entered my life, I had everything mapped out. I was a pediatric nurse at Willow Creek General Hospital, recently promoted to lead nurse on my ward. I was in a 2-year relationship with Daniel, a civil engineer I'd met through colleagues. We were discussing moving in together, and life felt like it was unfolding according to the perfect plan I'd envisioned. That all changed on a stormy Wednesday night in November. I'd just finished a grueling 12-hour shift, kicked off my shoes, and collapsed onto my couch with a glass of Pinot Noir and a takeout container of pad thai. The doorbell chimed around 9:45 p.m. I almost ignored it, assuming it was a misdelivered package or a neighbor at the wrong apartment. When it rang again, more urgently, I dragged myself to the door. What I found rewrote my entire future. A car seat sat on my doorstep, draped with a thin blanket to protect it from the drizzle. Pulling back the blanket, I saw a tiny baby girl, maybe 3 months old, with soft cheeks and a wisp of auburn hair, just like my sister Claire's. Tucked into the car seat was a folded note in handwriting I knew instantly. "Her name is Sophie. I can't do this. Please take care of her. I'm sorry." 7 words that turned my world upside down. I scanned the quiet street, but Claire was gone. I called her phone immediately, straight to voicemail. Hands trembling, I brought Sophie inside, carefully lifting the car seat. She slept peacefully, oblivious to her mother's abandonment. My first call after Claire's was to my parents. Their response still twists my gut when I recall it. "We told her not to keep that baby," my mother said icily. "She made her choice, and now she's running from it. Typical Claire." "But what do I do?" I asked, panic rising. "I can't just keep a baby. I don't know anything about infants." "She's your burden now," my father said, his voice unyielding. "We're done cleaning up Claire's messes. We're too old for this." "She left her with me, not you," I protested. "She's your granddaughter." "We never asked to be grandparents," my mother snapped, especially not to some child from whatever fling Claire had. They hung up, refusing to come over or help. I sat on my couch, staring at the sleeping baby, overwhelmed. Sophie woke soon after, her face scrunching into a hungry cry that sent me spiraling. My apartment had nothing for a baby. No formula, no diapers, nothing. I called Daniel, hoping he'd grab supplies. His reaction stunned me almost as much as my parents. "A baby? Your sister just dumped her kid on you? That's insane, Gabriella," he said. "You need to call social services." "I can't call social services in the middle of the night," I replied. "She's my niece. Can you just go to the 24-hour store and get formula and diapers?" "This isn't our problem," he said firmly. "This is the kind of drama Claire always drags you into. Don't let it happen." I hung up, realizing I was completely alone. I placed Sophie gently back in her car seat and drove to the nearest 24-hour supermarket. Still in my scrubs, I wandered the baby aisles, frantically Googling what formula to buy for a 3-month-old and guessing her diaper size. A kind older cashier, noticing my distress, helped me gather essentials, her eyes soft with concern, as I explained I was suddenly caring for my niece. That first night was a whirlwind of crying, formula temperature checks, and diaper changes. I called work the next morning to request emergency family leave, a first in my 6 years at the hospital. My supervisor, aware of my stellar record, granted me 2 weeks without hesitation. I filed a police report that morning, but the officers were unconcerned due to the note. "No crime in a mother leaving her child with family," they said. Claire wasn't missing, she'd chosen to leave. They took my details but warned me not to expect much. I consulted a family lawyer, who explained I'd need to file for temporary guardianship, a costly, time consuming process. Those first days were a haze of conflicting emotions. I was furious at Claire for abandoning her child, for leaving me with no explanation. But every time I looked at Sophie's tiny fingers and trusting eyes, my anger softened into protective love. She was innocent, entirely dependent on someone to care for her. That first night, I made a crib from a dresser drawer lined with soft blankets and slept on the couch beside her, waking every few hours to her cries. As I fed her in the quiet darkness, watching her face relax, I whispered a promise I'd keep for the next decade. I don't know what happened with your mom, but I'm here now. I'll figure this out. You're safe with me. Within 2 weeks, it was clear Claire wasn't coming back soon. I made major changes to accommodate Sophie. My one-bedroom apartment in downtown Willow Creek was too small, so I found a two-bedroom unit near the hospital, stretching my budget to its limit. Moving costs, baby furniture, and reduced work hours drained my savings, but I was determined to give Sophie stability. Becoming an instant mother was nothing like I'd imagined parenthood. There was no time to prepare or read baby books. I learned through necessity, often calling my pediatric nurse colleagues for advice when Sophie had a fever or wouldn't stop crying. My nursing background helped with medical needs, but the emotional and logistical challenges of single parenting were overwhelming. Work became a balancing act. I cut my hours to 30 per week and switched to day shifts, arranging childcare with a woman named Rosa, who ran a small daycare from her home. My career goals were shelved. My supervisor, though supportive, noted that my path to management would be delayed. The legal process for temporary guardianship was arduous and expensive. I filled out endless paperwork, met with court evaluators, and attended hearings. Without Claire to transfer custody, everything took twice as long. My home was inspected, my life scrutinized to prove I was fit to raise my niece. Meanwhile, my relationship with Daniel unraveled. His initial reluctance turned into resentment. I didn't sign up to date a single mom, he said during one of our frequent arguments. We had plans, Gabriella travel, buying a house, advancing our careers. How does that happen now? Life happens, I shot back. Plans change. What was I supposed to do? Put her in foster care? Maybe that would have been better for everyone, he muttered. That ended us. I packed his things and told him not to contact me again. Losing him hurt, but his suggestion to abandon Sophie revealed his true character. I was better off without him. My parents made rare, critical visits that first year. My mother would survey my apartment with disapproval, commenting on my tiredness or the clutter. She'd hold Sophie awkwardly, never offering to change a diaper or feed her. You're letting her cry too much, she'd say, but I suppose you don't know better. My father kept his distance, arms crossed, asking only about Claire with tightly controlled anger. Has anyone heard from her? He'd demand. If I had, you'd know, I'd reply, though their disinterest in Sophie made it feel like a lie. They'd written off both their daughters and their granddaughter in one call. Support came from unexpected places. My coworkers threw a baby shower a month after Sophie's arrival, gifting essentials and hand-me-downs. My neighbor, Mrs. Alvarez, became a surrogate grandmother, watching Sophie when I ran errands and teaching me tricks to soothe her colic. At 3 months, I hired a private investigator with money I couldn't spare. He traced Claire to Seattle, where she'd worked briefly at a diner, but the trail went cold. Knowing she was alive but choosing to stay away was both a relief and a heartbreak. Despite the chaos, Sophie thrived. She rolled over, sat up, crawled, and said her first word, Gabby, her name for me. I celebrated each milestone with photos and videos, storing them in a memory box with Claire's note and Sophie's few belongings. Her first birthday was simple, but joyful. Mrs. Alvarez baked a cake. A coworker brought balloons, and Sophie smeared frosting everywhere as our small circle cheered. My parents declined to attend, citing a prior commitment. As I tucked Sophie into her crib in her own room, decorated with thrift store finds and discount wall decals, I realized I could no longer imagine life without her. In a year, she'd gone from a responsibility to the center of my world. Happy birthday, sweet girl, I whispered, kissing her forehead. We made it through our first year. Here's to many more. 5 years passed quickly. Sophie started kindergarten at Willow Creek Elementary, a milestone that filled me with pride and nostalgia for her baby days. Our mornings were a routine of breakfast, outfit debates, and backpack checks. Sophie, an early riser, would climb into my bed with her stuffed bear, Teddy, asking, Gabby, is today art day? Can I wear my rainbow sneakers? Will you make waffles with strawberry faces? I'd transitioned to a school nurse position at a different elementary school to maintain boundaries. The job offered family friendly hours and holidays, crucial for being present for Sophie. My ambitions had shifted from hospital leadership to creating stability for our family of two. Our apartment was a true home, walls covered with Sophie's drawings and photos of our life together. Her personality, curious, resilient, creative, amazed me daily. She built elaborate block cities, invented stories, and asked questions that sometimes stumped me. We had traditions: Friday movie nights with popcorn and blanket forts, Sunday mornings at Willow Park, where Sophie loved the swings, and I chatted with other parents. These rituals gave her the stability kids crave, especially those with early disruptions. As Sophie grew, her questions about her origins deepened. I was honest in age appropriate ways, explaining that her mother, my sister, wasn't ready to be a mommy when Sophie was born. Where is she now? Sophie would ask, eyes wide. I don't know exactly, I'd reply, but she made sure you came to me because she knew I'd love you so much. Will she come back? I don't know, sweetheart, but you and I are a family. I made a storybook with pictures and text about different families, some with grandparents, some with two dads, some like ours, with an aunt who loves them fiercely. My parents visited sparingly, always with criticism. My mother brought age-inappropriate gifts, like dolls for a child who loved robots and puzzles. She should be in gymnastics, she'd say, ignoring Sophie's interests. My father stayed distant, asking about Claire but never engaging with Sophie. Her sensitivity picked up on their coldness, dimming her usual spark during their visits. My personal life stayed on hold. Dating as a single mother in my situation was nearly impossible. The few men I met balked when they learned of my commitment to Sophie. I focused on her needs, avoiding relationships that could disrupt our stability. Our support network grew. I joined a single parents group, and Sophie bonded with my coworkers' kids, forming a chosen family for holidays and milestones. Financially, things were tight. I took a second job doing telehealth consultations 2 nights a week after Sophie slept, saving for her college fund. It meant less sleep and careful budgeting, but the growing savings gave me peace of mind. When Sophie was 6, we took our first vacation to Disneyland, a trip she still raved about. Watching her beam at her favorite characters made every sacrifice worth it. Sophie's artistic talent emerged, her kindergarten teacher praising her detailed drawings. I nurtured this with art supplies and museum trips to Portland. On the 5th anniversary of Sophie's arrival, I reflected on how my life had transformed. My apartment held children's books instead of novels, my fridge displayed spelling tests, and my schedule revolved around school events. It wasn't the life I'd planned, but I couldn't imagine anything else. Under my bed, I kept unsent letters to Claire, documenting Sophie's milestones, her funny sayings, her growing personality for a mother who might one day want to know. Look what I made, Gabby, Sophie called, running into the kitchen with a drawing of 2 figures, one tall, one small, inside a big blue heart. Is that us? Yes, it's you and me in a heart because we're a heart family, not a blood family. Miss Carter said some families are made from blood and some from heart. Heart families are just as real. Miss Carter's smart, I said, blinking back tears. We're definitely a heart family, the best kind. Sophie nodded with a 5-year-old's certainty. I hung the drawing on the fridge, a reminder of what we'd built from an unexpected beginning. 4 more years passed in a rhythm of school, summer breaks, and everyday moments. Sophie was 9, thriving in 4th grade with friends and a passion for art and science. She had Claire's creativity, but a steadiness all her own. On a typical Tuesday evening, as I helped Sophie with a science project about constellations, an unknown number flashed on my phone. I almost ignored it, but something made me answer. Hello, Gabriella. The voice was hesitant, familiar, yet strange after 10 years. It's Claire. My hand tightened on the phone as I stepped into my bedroom, away from Sophie's curious gaze. Claire, where are you? Are you okay? I'm fine. I'm in Willow Creek. Can we meet? We arranged to meet at a cafe the next day while Sophie was at school. I spent the night wrestling with anger, anxiety, and relief that she was alive. I told Sophie I had an appointment, hating the lie but needing to understand Claire's intentions before involving her daughter. At the cafe, Claire was unrecognizable from the troubled sister I remembered. At 32, her hair was a sleek pixie cut, not the messy waves of her youth. She wore a tailored jacket and carried a designer purse, looking healthy and polished, far from the overwhelmed mother who'd left Sophie behind. "You look good," she said, sitting across from me. "Really good." "You too," I replied, searching her face for traces of the sister I'd once known. "You seem... well." "I am," she said, twisting her hands despite her composed appearance. "I've been sober for 7 years, completed rehab, got my degree in graphic design, and I'm married to a wonderful man named Michael." She shared her story of recovery. After leaving Sophie, she'd spiraled into addiction in Seattle, hit rock bottom, and entered rehab. There, she met Michael, a counselor. After maintaining sobriety, they married. They had no children. "I wasn't fit to be a mother then," she admitted. "I was using during my pregnancy, though I tried to stop. Postpartum depression hit hard, and I went back to drugs. The night I left Sophie with you, I'd been using for days. I knew I'd hurt her if I kept her." I showed her photos of Sophie's childhood first steps, preschool, birthdays, Halloween costumes. Claire wiped tears as she scrolled through a decade of absence. "She's beautiful," she whispered. "So happy. You've done an incredible job, Gabriella." My emotions were a storm of old anger and cautious hope. We talked for hours, navigating 10 years of separation. "I'd like to meet her," Claire said finally, "if you think that's okay." After consulting a child psychologist, I arranged their first meeting at a science museum, a neutral space where Sophie could feel at ease. I prepared Sophie, explaining that her birth mother had been sick but was better now and wanted to meet her. I stressed that our life together wouldn't change, but Claire might become like an aunt. Sophie was shy, clinging to my hand as Claire approached with a nervous smile. "Hello, Sophie," Claire said softly. "I've been looking forward to meeting you." "Hi," Sophie replied, half hiding behind me. "Gabby says you're her sister." "That's right. And I'm also your birth mother. You grew in my tummy before you were born." Sophie nodded. "But Gabby's my real mom because she takes care of me, loves me, and makes me soup when I'm sick." Claire's eyes teared up, but she smiled. "You're right. You're lucky to have such a wonderful mom." Over months, Claire became a cautious presence in our lives with supervised visits. She respected boundaries, bringing gifts that showed she noticed Sophie's interests. After 6 months, she dropped a bombshell. She and Michael were moving to Willow Creek permanently. She'd taken a job at a local design firm, and they'd bought a house 20 minutes away. "We want to be closer to Sophie," she explained over coffee, "to be part of her life." Warning bells rang, but I reasoned it could benefit Sophie to have her birth mother around in a healthy way. I invited them for dinner to meet Michael. He was charming, asking Sophie about school and complimenting my cooking, but his polished responses and watchful gaze on Claire felt off. During dessert, Claire spoke, glancing at Michael. "We've been thinking, now that we're settled, I'd like to be Sophie's mother again, legally." My fork hit the plate. "What are you saying?" "We think Sophie should live with us," Michael said smoothly. "You'd have visitation, Gabriella. You've done an amazing job, but a child belongs with her mother." "I am her mother," I said, keeping my voice low for Sophie's sake. "I've been her mother for 10 years while you were gone." "Biologically, I'm her mother," Claire countered. "We have a house, a yard, a top school district. Michael earns well. She'd have her own room, a college fund, vacations, everything a child needs." "She has everything she needs," I said, struggling to stay calm, "including stability with the only parent she's ever known." The conversation ended tensely with promises to talk later. After they left, I sat in stunned silence, realizing Claire wanted to replace me. The situation worsened when my parents, who rarely contacted me, invited us for Sunday dinner. Claire and Michael were there, looking at home in my childhood house. After an awkward meal, my father spoke. Claire's told us everything: her recovery, her marriage, her desire to be Sophie's mother. She's turned her life around. You've been in contact with her? I asked, pieces clicking into place. For how long? We reconnected 3 years ago, my father admitted. She reached out after rehab. 3 years, I repeated, numb. And you never told me. She wanted to get herself together first, my mother said defensively. Now that she has, my father continued, we think Sophie should be with her real mother in a traditional family. You've done your part, Gabriella, but it's time to do what's best for Sophie. Blood is blood, my mother added. She deserves her actual mother. The betrayal stung. They'd supported Claire's plan while criticizing me for years. We're leaving, I said, grabbing Sophie's hand. Sophie, get your coat. But we haven't had dessert, she protested, sensing the tension. We'll get ice cream on the way home, I promised, avoiding my family's eyes. In the car, Sophie was quiet, then said, Grandma said I might live with Aunt Claire and Uncle Michael. Is that true? No, sweetie, I said, pulling over to face her. You live with me. That's your home. But she said Aunt Claire's my real mom. Listen, Sophie, we're a family. We have been since the day you came to me. Nothing will change that. Her lip trembled. Cross your heart. Cross my heart, I said, making our gesture. No one's taking you away. That night, Sophie had a nightmare, crying out, No, don't take me. As I soothed her, a fierce determination settled in me. I'd fight to keep my promise. 3 weeks later, a certified letter arrived. Claire was petitioning for custody restoration. The court date was set for 30 days later. The legal terms biological parent, termination of guardianship, best interests of the child felt like punches. I feared a judge who didn't know our bond could dismantle our life. I hired Sarah Martinez, a family law attorney recommended by a colleague, using my savings and a loan. Her office, with toys in the corner, showed she understood the stakes. I won't lie, Sarah said. Biological parents have strong rights, even absent ones. But your 10 years as Sophie's caregiver and the abandonment circumstances help us. Judges avoid disrupting stable environments. We built a case documenting our life, school records showing my involvement, medical records proving my care, letters from Sophie's teachers and neighbors. Claire's attorney's documents revealed a shock. My parents had submitted affidavits claiming I'd alienated Sophie from her mother and family, refusing visitation and family traditions. Lies. They'd visited sparingly, always critically, and had known Claire's whereabouts for years. These are false, I told Sarah, shaking. They barely saw Sophie and never told me about Claire. Family cases get ugly, Sarah said gently. We can refute this with your records of their visits and communication. I had saved texts and emails documenting their cancellations and criticism, never expecting they'd be evidence. The stress affected Sophie. She couldn't sleep, grew clingy, and her grades slipped. Her teacher reported her crying in class when a peer mentioned moving. I arranged therapy with a child psychologist specializing in family transitions. Sophie shows significant anxiety about separation from her primary caregiver, the psychologist reported. Forcing a custody change could cause emotional trauma. I rehired the private investigator to check Claire and Michael's claims. He found Michael had a dismissed domestic violence charge from a past relationship, raising red flags. The legal discovery process was invasive, with Claire's attorney scrutinizing my finances, work, and dating life to paint me as inadequate. Explaining the case to Sophie was heart-wrenching. The judge will decide what's best for you, I said, sitting on her bed. Aunt Claire wants you to live with her, but I want you to stay with me. I want to stay with you, Sophie cried. Why does a judge choose my mom? I chose you. I know, I said, holding her. We'll tell the judge that. I'll do everything to keep us together. As the court date neared, I maintained normalcy for Sophie movie nights, park visits, helping with her art show. Claire's return after exactly 10 years seemed suspicious. I mentioned it to the investigator. That's convenient, he said. Let me check if anything changes legally at 10 years. 2 days later, he called urgently. At my apartment, with Sophie distracted by TV, he spread documents on the table. Michael's been searching for Sophie's biological father, he said, showing social media and database records. They found him 6 months ago, just before contacting you. His name's Ethan Carter, and he inherited millions from his grandfather last year. If Claire regains custody and establishes paternity, they could claim retroactive child support and control Sophie's financial benefits. The truth hit hard. Claire's return wasn't about motherhood but money. Michael's business was struggling, their house heavily mortgaged. Can you document this? And I asked. Done, he said, tapping the folder. Plus evidence contradicting their filings and your parents' knowledge of Claire's whereabouts for years. I compiled everything into a sealed folder. Sarah reviewed it, her calm cracking. This changes everything. The judge needs to see this. The Willow County Courthouse was imposing, its stone and glass facade daunting. I wore a navy suit, projecting stability. Sophie stayed with her art teacher to avoid the courtroom's tension. Claire and Michael sat across the aisle, Claire in a maternal dress, Michael in a sharp suit. My parents sat behind them, my mother clutching her purse, my father's jaw set. Judge Ellison, a woman in her 60s with gray hair and sharp eyes, opened the hearing. This is to determine custody of Sophie Bennett, age 10. The court's priority is her best interest. Claire testified first, weaving a tale of youthful mistakes, sobriety, and maternal longing. She described her stable marriage, spacious home, and financial security, weeping about missing Sophie's life and wanting to make amends. Michael echoed her, touting their 4-bedroom house, top school district, and college fund. We can offer Sophie stability and opportunities not possible in her current situation, he said. My parents reinforced Claire's story. My mother claimed I'd resisted family gatherings, alienating Sophie. Gabriella's always been stubborn, she sighed. She shut us out. My father called Claire reformed, saying I'd refused to acknowledge Sophie's need for her biological mother. Blood is blood, he said. Sophie belongs with Claire. Their words stung, each lie a betrayal. Claire's attorney grilled me on my finances, apartment, and single status, implying inadequacy. I answered calmly, feeling the judgment in his questions. When my turn came, Sophie's teachers testified to her progress and our bond. In 20 years, I've rarely seen a parent as attentive as Gabriella, her teacher said. Sophie's thriving, confident, kind, motivated. The school counselor warned that disrupting Sophie's home could cause anxiety and regression. I testified about our 10 years together, from sleepless newborn nights to her vibrant 10-year-old self. I described our routines, traditions, and chosen family. I've loved Sophie as my own from the moment she arrived, I said. Not because she's my biological child, but because she's mine in every way that matters. Sarah presented the sealed folder. Judge Ellison's expression shifted as she reviewed it. Counsel, approach, she said. After a tense discussion, she addressed Claire. Ms. Bennett, are you aware of this folder's contents? No, Your Honor, Claire said, confused. It contradicts your petition, the judge said. It shows your husband searched for Sophie's biological father, who inherited millions. There's evidence you've been in contact with your parents for 3 years, contradicting their testimony, and social media suggesting financial motives. Claire paled, glancing at Michael, whose face hardened. The judge turned to my parents. Mr. and Mrs. Lawson, did you knowingly provide false testimony? We were protecting Claire's privacy, my father said. That's not what I asked, Judge Ellison snapped. Did you lie under oath? We may have misremembered, my mother said weakly. Perjury is serious, the judge warned, then addressed Claire. Were you aware of your husband's search for financial gain? Michael handled the legal side, Claire said, avoiding her gaze. He said it would help our case. Michael tried to speak, but the judge cut him off. Confer with your attorney, Mr. Thompson. The courtroom's atmosphere shifted. What began as Claire's polished narrative unraveled into lies and ulterior motives. After a recess, Judge Ellison ruled. The evidence suggests financial motivations in the petitioner's case. Ms. Bennett, your petition raises concerns about your judgment. Ms. Lawson, you've provided a loving, stable home for Sophie. The testimony and documentation are compelling. She ruled, Sophie Bennett's best interests are served by remaining with her aunt and legal guardian, Gabriella Lawson. The petition is denied. Relief flooded me. Ms. Bennett will have limited supervised visitation, with potential for expansion if appropriate. Mr. and Mrs. Lawson, your misleading testimony undermines the legal process. As proceedings ended, I sat, processing our victory. Claire approached, eyes red. I didn't want to hurt her or you, she said. It got complicated. It didn't have to, I replied, drained. You could have been honest about wanting to know her. She nodded. I know. Michael thought. It doesn't matter what he thought, I said, walking out into the sunlight, free to remain Sophie's mother. Picking up Sophie from her art teacher's house was unforgettable. She ran to me, searching my face. What did the judge say? Do I stay with you? Yes, sweetheart, I said, kneeling. You stay with me. We're a family, always. You promised, she said, hugging me. You cross your heart promised, and you kept it. I'll always keep my promises, I said, holding her, the weight of the battle lifting. That night, we celebrated with pizza and ice cream, a simple feast that felt extravagant. Sophie's resilience shone as she chatted about her art project. I met my parents without Sophie to address their betrayal. How could you lie in court? I asked. How could you support taking Sophie from her home? We thought we were doing right, my father said. Claire's her mother. I'm her mother too, I said. You chose Claire over us and lied. I can't trust you around Sophie now. That's ridiculous, my mother protested. We're her grandparents. Grandparents who'd traumatize her, I countered. Supervised visits only. No undermining me. No private talks with Claire. No lies. They reluctantly agreed. Sophie continued therapy, processing her fears through art and play. Sometimes I feel like I have two moms but no mom, she told her therapist. Aunt Claire didn't want me, but Gabby does. It's confusing. Family can be complicated, the therapist said. What matters is who loves you every day. That's Gabby, Sophie said. She's my real mom because she chose me. We created new traditions with our chosen family friends, neighbors, colleagues who'd supported us. Claire's supervised visits continued. Michael stopped attending, his interest fading without financial gain. Claire became an aunt-like figure, caring but not replacing me. I earned a promotion to health services coordinator, allowing us to move to a larger apartment with a yard for Sophie's garden. Months later, Claire apologized over coffee. I was wrong, she said. You're a better mother to Sophie than I could have been. Biology doesn't trump love. Thank you, I said, surprised by how much it meant. She'd ended things with Michael after his motives surfaced, focusing on sobriety, her career, and a healthy relationship with Sophie. Sophie thrived, her resilience shaping a coherent narrative of her family. She grew interested in psychology, wanting to help kids with complex families. On her 11th birthday, she gave me a card. To my mom, who chose me every day for 11 years. Biology makes relatives, but love makes families. Thank you for being my real mom. Reflecting on our journey from that stormy night to the confident 11-year-old before me, I saw that this detour had led me where I was meant to be. I hadn't planned to be a mother at 22, but Sophie was my greatest gift. Family wasn't just blood. It was who you chose to love, day after day, through challenges and joys. As we sat on our balcony watching the sunset, Sophie said, Gabby, do you ever wonder what would have happened if Mom hadn't left me with you? Sometimes, I admitted. But I'm grateful it happened exactly as it did. Me too, she said, leaning against me. What's your experience with family beyond blood? Have you had someone become family through love and choice? Thank you for listening. Take care. Good luck.